This is Frank DiMora with the End Times Research Ministry, the author of the book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, which you can download today for free at my website. But today I want to cover a little bit of what the Lord shows us in Daniel 2 and Daniel chapter 7. Because in these chapters, this is where God shows us the outline of what's going to take place in the future concerning the world empires that will be coming one after another all the way up until the time that Jesus Christ comes back to earth. And the last empire that will come is going to be a revived Roman Empire. Now, in my book, I break this down for you to show you the developments that have been taking place recently that have to do with this old Roman Empire. Now, the old Roman Empire really had two legs to it, as you see in this figure here. We had the eastern leg and also the western leg of the old Roman Empire. And the eastern leg of the old Roman Empire was the Islamic nations. And of course, when Rome fell, the eastern part of the old Roman Empire remained. I believe they remained all the way up until 1923. That was the Ottoman Empire. Now, we believe that there is a really good chance that the Ottoman Empire is going to resurrect again. We see signs of that happening now. And it could generate the Antichrist from coming from the Islamic State. Now, what is very interesting that I've been covering the possibility that the eastern leg and the western leg of the old Roman Empire coming back again. And I'm showing the developments of that process taking place right now. For example, back in November, I talked about the talks between Turkey and the EU and how they were declaring a new beginning of talks that would lead to the ascension of Turkey coming into the European Union. And back in November, they were dealing with the immigration problem of the Syrians that were leaving Syria because of the civil war, and they were pouring into Turkey. And they were pouring into European nations. And so the European Union was asking Turkey for help. In this process of Turkey coming to the aid of the European Union, all it did was speed up the activity of the talks of the Ascension of Turkey, which obviously for both of those nations, it would be a good thing. Now, in December of 2015, there was some other news about the new talks that had to do with the economics. Now, for those of you who may not know, the talks that are going on, they have to do with the chapters. They're called chapters that Turkey has to abide by in order for the ascension to take place. For example, in this article, EU and Turkey open fresh chapter in ascension talks that now deal with the economics of Turkey in relation to Turkey entering into the European Union. Now, this is really exciting when you're watching Bible prophecy, because if Turkey does get in to the European Union, and they've already gone through now 17 chapters, or they're in the process of the 17th chapter, and there's only 35 chapters to go through. So, and obviously, they're very serious to get all of these chapters completed to bring in Turkey, otherwise they wouldn't even be meeting. Now, considering the fact that Turkey is a very rich nation and a very powerful nation, it would be advantageous for the EU to bring them in. So this December 14th of 2015 article, you'll see it here. It says EU opens economic talks with Turkey to revive membership bid. But just keep in mind these facts. The eastern leg of the old Roman Empire was in fact the Ottoman Empire. So if Turkey does go into the European Union, there is a highly good chance that the Antichrist, who the scriptures point out is coming from an Islamic nation, Turkey may be that nation that the Antichrist comes from. One thing is for sure, the developments are well worth watching to see what happens between the EU and Turkey, or if you will, the western leg and the eastern leg trying to come together again in the last days. Watch the video. As part of the EU's move to seek Turkish help in tackling the continent's migration crisis, Brussels has opened further talks on Ankara's long-standing bid to join the 28-member bloc. Negotiations have stalled for years, but now officials are discussing the EU's financial and economic rules.
Opening a chapter after 2 years is quite symbolic. I think we all realize better now a close and positive Turkish-EU relations is essential. The challenges we are facing, such as irregular migration and terrorism, require more forward-looking, constructive relations.
The opening of the so-called Chapter 17, one of 35 in the EU's membership talks, looks to bring Turkey's financial and economic rules in line with those in the EU. Ties between Brussels and Ankara have been frosty in recent years owing to differences on human rights, media freedom and the status of Cyprus. Whilst Europe has turned to Turkey for help in stemming the migratory flow, the country is already hosting 2.2 million Syrian refugees. It also says the international community has failed to deliver on financial pledges made in the past. Turkey must successfully conclude negotiations with the EU on 35 policy chapters to gain membership. Today's opening of Chapter 17 on economic and monetary policy means that only 15 chapters have been opened so far. A lot of chapters remain blocked or are yet to be discussed. Those on justice and fundamental rights are more controversial. So watching the developments coming out of the EU in relation to Turkey, it's definitely something that we should be watching.